I'm Durba Mukherjee, the mother of Arka the 12-year-old child who passed away on June 21, 2019, falling off a neighborhood high-rise in Davisville. I would like to share a few words with all the participants of the coroner's review. According to police, my son died by suicide, leaving a suicide note in legal language. On June 19, 2019, my son actually got a Nintendo Switch from his classmate who was bullying him throughout the academic year. On June 20, 2019, when he went to school, he learned that the Nintendo Switch actually belongs to another boy. At school, he was scared to tell this because both were there. So just after school, my son called to my apartment and handed over the Nintendo Switch to him, explaining everything. That night, around 10 p.m., wrote to school accusing my son of theft and hacking, etc. On June 21, 2019, the school knew from the accuser's email that there was nothing missing. But to satisfy his demand, the school interrogated my son for long hours in order to get a confession to stealing from him. My son was also threatened that he will be handed over to police if he does not confess. But still could not make my boy confess to stealing. Then at 2:40 p.m., she called me at work and threatened me that the parent will go to the cops as my son's school email ID was found in the log. So I was asked to share my son's confession with the school. After I came home, talking to my son, I called. His father picked, and for almost an hour, he kept on threatening me. He claimed that some deleted money of around $60 got deleted. I offered to pay him. Then he claimed some credit cards were attached with the console that got deleted. I told him, if you can spot some misuse and share the statement with me, I will pay. He told some downloaded games got deleted. That also I told I will pay. But I could not pacify him and could not make him say that he will not go to cops. At some point, I burst out crying while begging him not to hand over my son to the cops. My son was sitting next to me. After that, I asked my son to call his best friend because I wanted to talk to his mother. I shared that I'm threatened that I have to share my son's confession with school, confession to stealing. I asked her whether I can write his name in an email to school, whether Go can support my boy. She agreed. After that call, My son went out of the apartment saying he will call another boy. He will be back in 5 minutes. He never returned. There is no concrete evidence that my son actually jumped off the terrace of that building. Even if he did, to me, it is not a suicide. It is a murder. If you think a 12-year-old child took a console of his friend, you already know he gave it back on his own before anyone asked him to do that. Then why he had to die leaving a suicide note carrying text, "I hereby confess to stealing," the very next day? I want Toronto District School Board and Toronto Police Service to answer this question and share with my community if they can. The police claimed they never investigated any complaint of theft against my son. But the entire investigation report describes why my son should be called a thief. They even shared an excerpt of the suicide note, specifically that text, "I hereby confess to stealing," with media to malign a 12-year-old dead child. Is it a regular practice in Canada? The police investigation report says there was no previous report of any assault. Well, I have shared the previous report of assault from the same division of police service with our amicus, Nancy. Police investigation report says the console was found with my boy. Who found it? Not written. Then it says my son was disciplined. But the school never cared to write to me what my son was disciplined for. Then it says the console was returned to the boy. Who returned it? Not written. Police actually reversed the chronology of the entire Nintendo Switch episode to paint my child as a thief and to justify what was done to my boy. Nowhere in the report it says that my son actually returned the Nintendo Switch on his own before he was accused of theft. This is evident in school record from the accuser's email. He was actually humiliated and threatened at school for returning the console to the rightful owner. This shows the very intent of the system towards a colored immigrant child. This shows what gave that parent and the confidence to threaten a new immigrant family of police case and attach a stigma of a thief to a bright, brilliant child who was winning hearts around. They actually know police works for them. They can do anything to people like us and can get away with it. The suicide note that police recorded says, "I hereby confess to stealing." How many such thieves have you heard of in Canada who returned the stolen item to the rightful owner on their own and then jumped off a high rise to their death, leaving a suicide note in legal language like this? One more thing that might not be important for you. The suicide note says, "Dear Mom." My son used to call me Ma, not Mom. The school board told media, Toronto Star and Global News, they have investigated the matter and did not find anything. Not only that, the report will remain private. By end of 2020, after 1.5 years of follow-up with TDSP and the Ombudsman of Ontario, I received an email from school board that the school did not do anything after my child's passing that resulted in a report. This shows the school does not care if their student gets hurt or dies. It is important for them to cover up their stuff in their payroll. When my son had to visit the hospital, I want to know what action did they take against those bullies. How did they allow a child much bigger in size and with history of violence to come close to my son during supervised lunch? I had to sign a form for that supervised lunch at school. What action did they take against the supervisor of that lunch? Does school board allow disciplining a child keeping the parent unaware? If not, what action school board has taken against the staff who did so? Two privileged adults, white adults, with vile intention, crushed my 12-year-old child in a single day. Just one single day. Another white privileged male, he wrote an investigation report to cover them up and justify the miserable death of a 12-year-old child, painting him like a criminal. All these people, all these privileged adults, they moved on with their life. They have their Nintendo Switch. They can still play. Only my little boy is gone forever. Every single day, I regret my decision to move to this country along with my child. I have nothing else to say.